everybody. Welcome to this week in Pre-IPO Stocks Podcast. With me, I got Nick Fusco, CEO of ApeVue, Pre-IPO Secondary Market Pricing Company, Clint Sorenson, Chief Investment Officer at Wellshield, an outsourced CIO and investment research firm. And we got a very special guest in Tim Urie, Managing Partner at Orbis Wealth Management. It's an RIA based here in New York City. So today we got three topics queued up. I want to talk about crypto predictions now that we got some SEC clarity on crypto regulation. Talk about Reddit's IPO and this API policy that got coming in. And then, of course, the Apple Vision Pro, which was just announced by Apple this past week. So let's get started with some crypto. So the SEC came out last week. They sued Binance and they also sued Coinbase. They said they got to operate their exchanges, and they also had coins that both needed to be registered. So they're kind of in the penalty box, these guys. It'd be interesting to see how this plays out. But what I want to get from you guys is some thoughts on what this could mean going forward, right? But Nick, also, you shared here a slide with Kraken, right? So how about you run us through this real quick before we dive into the topics?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think Kraken's a pretty good representation of what we're seeing on the crypto exchange side in terms of prices falling away when crypto was significantly hotter, particularly a year ago from when we had the most recent price on ApeVue, the consortium of brokered levels. We've seen that decline from sneaking in about 63 down 79% to $13 on pricing on Kraken. But that's not terribly dissimilar from what we've seen elsewhere. So I think this puts a pretty good big context into what we're going to chat through with the SEC, because that has such a profound impact on cryptocurrencies, anything blockchain related for that matter.
Yeah. I mean, well, also too, Nick, I mean, like I've seen on ApeVue that OpenSea, like secondary market activity in OpenSea's kind of dried up a little bit too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think really you're seeing this big flow, and whether you're just reading comments on Twitter or what you're seeing coming out of Wall Street Journal, New York Times, it's almost like some of crypto had its day and now people are hopping on the AI bandwagon. Funnily enough, there's this segue of while the FTX investigation is going on, they just found out that the fund side invested in an AI company, and there actually might be some recovery for owners. Like this crazy thing, but I think that the trend or the fad of crypto is bouncing in and out of consciousness. So you start to see that with depth in terms of the number of bids and offers that you're observing on a lot of these private companies. And also, I'm kind of seeing or expecting that even as prices are going down at the velocity they had done, that might also affect liquidity as well. So over the last year, we saw bid offer spreads widen out a fair bit, all the way up until the peak of when they were the widest, which was the Silicon Valley Bank fallout.
Right.
And now you're starting to see that come back. So I think you're getting a bit of both, but maybe some of that crypto mindset has gone to AI too.
Right. Interesting. That's interesting. All right. So Clint, I got a question for you, man. Now that we got some clarity from the SEC, and maybe folks in crypto land won't think that way, but to me, it's pretty clear. The SEC said crypto firms have to follow these SEC regulations. Do you think the big brokerage firms are going to start offering this in kind of a proper way, like the Schwabs, the Fidelities, the Pershings, the Morgan Stanleys, through their wealth management channels to advisors and their clients?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's too early. I would think so, right? Because I think blockchain's here to stay, right? I mean, I think there's obviously issues, but I think in terms of thinking about how fast compute spend's rising, you've got to somehow decentralize this at some point when you start to consider AI and data ownership and all the different issues that come around it. So yeah. I would imagine so. I just think that declaring that it's a security was what we should have done to begin with, right? I think this has to do with the latency of regulation to begin with, just how lagged it was to crypto, and it allowed things to kind of run crazy. I mean, if you think about, my friend James Catula says this best, and I'm going to completely steal it, but have you ever seen the South Park Underpants Gnomes episode? So step 1 was break a law, right? Still underpants. Step 2 was a question mark. Step 3 was profit. So that's crypto, right? So they all came out and they knew they were breaking securities laws because there was no law. They just said, hey, we're just going to go crazy here. They had no idea what was going to happen next. But what happened next was you had a clear line in the sand drawn, which was there are those that were considered commodities by the CFTC, which is Ethereum and Bitcoin futures, and you have everything else, which is going to be denoted as security. And I think there was a major misstep in the early days, especially with Ethereum, where they started to say, oh, there's utility tokens and there's security tokens. And it was just too muddy. And that's what happens early on to pretty much everything. This cycle has been repeated throughout all of innovation. And I'm still very optimistic on the underlying technology aspects and on decentralization as a whole. And I think that's the way you got to kind of look at it thematically and just make sure you stay within regulations. Right. And I think most major securities exchanges are going to end up trading the commodities right now, but they will have the capabilities to add other securities as they come out and there's more regulation, more clarity.
I got you. So you think Bitcoin, just drive that home, Bitcoin and Ethereum is probably a sooner yes, and then maybe some of this other stuff comes later. Okay, got it. Okay. So Nick, let me ask you this, man. So I'm already seeing it, like, Andreessen Horowitz just announced that they're opening up an office in London now, right? Because they think that the crypto kind of center of the world is going to move to London. So do you think for some of these coins that probably won't be trading here in the US, is there like an opportunity for like an ADR type style security, right? Where, you're taking something that's trading in London and you kind of register it here, a vehicle here, and now you can buy it through your Fidelity account?
So I'm not a securities law, but a depository receipt could be justified as a security or not. So if it is, then no. Like, what's the point? But no, I'm not even going to opine on that. I don't know.
Probably more of a closed-end fund, Aaron. If you think about it, right? So think about like GBTC, and those type of structures, right? That's probably more along the lines of what you'll see in terms of overseas. You have access to these exposures, and you can still buy them on exchanges like Coinbase or wherever kind of goes to these overseas jurisdictions, which are more friendly. Far more friendly currently, right? If you look at what's going on over there, but it'll be interesting to see. Sorry to jump in there,
but so Nick, you're like our resident, technologist, right, Nick? So like, what do you think about Clint? Yeah, man, I'm going for it, right?
Well, that's scary.
You've been blessed, right? So but like, Clint brings up a lot. Like, there's these like coins, and then there's the blockchain technology, right? Like, what do you think? I mean, does this impact the blockchain technology, this kind of view of what the SEC said? I've always kind of viewed those things as maybe a little bit more separate.
I would separate everything out. I mean, I'm a firm believer in the blockchain technology, just as Clint is. Highly supportive of everything that it can do for efficiency's sake, security's sake, even in a lot of cases too. I don't think you have to pile that into a cryptocurrency type setup. There's a ton of utility, if I can dare use that word, for like an Ethereum type of contract, or really anything, So I think the blockchain should be separate from the crypto conversation just generally, in my mind.
Okay, cool. And then Tim, let me ask you this, man. So you're an advisor, right? You work with individual clients, and I'm not sure if you guys buy, kind of Bitcoin or Ethereum or other crypto, type investments for your clients today. But so maybe you can say if you do or you don't. If you do, I'm actually interested in how you do that. But if you don't, like if it was available through Fidelity or Schwab or wherever you custody at, is that something that you would now consider?
I would say it's a good question. I'd say the perspective from the individual client is we don't buy or trade or recommend it currently. However, it's continuing to evolve, to your point. There are some actually businesses trying to create a custodian platform for crypto to link into the data feeds of advisors. That hasn't really hit, I would say, the full system yet, though. That's still early stage. And also likewise, at the individual client level, younger clients, of course, you're going to see it more prevalent in their portfolios. Older, not so much. And I actually think this regulation, while some might perceive it, I think some of the younger investors seeing some of their tokens getting taken away and what have you, or regulation come in, perceive it as bad. I think older investors are going to need to see that establishment, sort of the government stamp of approval, before they really feel confident saying, hey, advisor, how do I buy this? Where do I buy this? And hopefully the platform and technology coincides well with that for that to come to fruition.
I got it. So still a little bit too early, perhaps, right? Is where I'm
I
hearing
think so.
I got you.
But clients do own it. You will see clients owning it, and we do factor that into their net worth and talk about maybe concentrations, but we don't advise them on their particular coins.
Gotcha. All right, let's shift focus over to Reddit. So Reddit has announced that they're going to do an IPO, right? And as you can tell, they're kind of preparing for it. They recently made this new API policy where they were not charging for their APIs. Now they are, and it's a lot. And I think this has to do with AI. So, Nick, Clint, you always talk about AI and kind of data. So, but it's made a lot of people very unhappy, a lot of their users very unhappy, right? And they're about to go through this like 48-hour blackout period where like 40% of the Reddit users are not going to use it for 48, which is wild, right? So, wanted to get your guys' thoughts on this. Actually, I think, Nick, you might have a slide on this, right? If I'm not mistaken. Pricing's like, yeah, you do. Hold on, let me pull this back up again so you can speak to this. Yeah, so talk to us about Reddit.
So I guess coming up, leading into an IPO, there's usually a pretty decent halt on transactions that you can do. Not to say that this can't be done through SPVs, so shares held in an SPV, which is really trading not the stock, but the right of ownership, right? So the darker blue line is really the derived price of how we would have predicted the trend to go, and the purple is when it picks back up. So you can see a pretty pronounced decline here on Reddit. But I'm very excited to see what's going to occur coming into the IPO, particularly around all the announcements they're doing about monetization of the API. So right. I think the value of data, particularly some of this challenging or somewhat unstructured information that they have, is so much more valuable today than it was 10 years ago. So if you're selling into a hedge fund, if you're selling into various institution types, I just think there's so much that can be done to monetize that now. So I see this as a brilliant play, and coinciding with the IPO, why not? I mean, you're just getting so many eyes on it, and so many more people thinking about the potential.
Yes.
Because it's not just, hey, this is a staid business that's been around for a long time. This is a business that's ready to reinvent itself in the AI world, which is powered off of training models, right? This is huge. I love it.
Yeah, that's a very interesting
strategically.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that way. That's an interesting investment thesis. So Tim, like this company IPOs. First of all, do you buy IPOs for your clients? Kind of right out of the gate like that?
We, of course, on here we can't specify which investments we purchase or buy, but not IPOs in the classic sense. But we're exploring that actually this year to include that into our platform. So
interesting.
Yes,
soon. Okay, so I got you. So is it so? I mean, I'm assuming you probably have index funds or mutual funds, so you pick them up like whenever the index company adds them in to the index, right? But it doesn't sound like you're kind of quite in that space yet around this.
No, but I tell you, a lot of clients obviously know of Reddit, but I'd say Reddit also has its own I'd say reputation of obscurity to some generations.
Right.
Right. You know, that there's almost like a hard line.
Yeah,
I do not
use it.
Yeah,
I don't.
And I'm probably right in the middle of our client base in terms of age, in my mid 40s. Half of our clients above that, probably maybe 2/3 and a third. But
yeah, it seems to attract a certain type of user, doesn't it? Reddit.
Yeah, and not too far from crypto, I would say. Again, same perception. It's a perception, and uninformed clients might not be familiar with how prevalent it truly is.
Very true. All right, so Clint, talk to us about this AI. Nick likes the AI kind of data play. Like, what are your thoughts on this kind of API?
This goes back to what I heard on that the social experiment documentary. If it's free, you're the product. And I think through AI, we're all going to realize how valuable our data was. We're going to all be kicking ourselves. And then, as we talked about in previous AI conversations, the individual is going to eventually revolt over the cost of they're charging for data that we have supplied these platforms for them simply providing a community for users to join and to commune, right? And I think that data is now so valuable. You look at I can't even fathom how valuable it and how expensive data is going to be eventually. And I think, again, as I said, when you see this kind of point that this is going to come to with AI, it's going to come to a war between the individual and these big platforms who have now gained all this data by providing something free, whether it's search engines or Twitter or Meta, whatever it is, Reddit, all that data that they now own has just taken a massive leap in value, and I don't think anyone can truly fathom how valuable it is currently. I mean, we can all guess, but I think ultimately it's going to come down to a war between the individual who's going to be like, I want some of that, and these platforms who I have all of that, and it's going to be interesting to see kind of how the dominoes fall. But you're going to see this across the board.
So you're not surprised then? You're not surprised to see these Reddit users kind of
You're going to see it on you pretty much look at a platform that exists, and they will monetize that data through AI in ways that are currently just coming out of the shadow realm into the conceivable realm. And I think it's going to continue to manifest and grow exponentially.
That's very interesting. Okay, so listen, I want to shift to this last topic because my hope was to spend the most time on it. Looks like we're tracking well. So this Apple Vision Pro, I'm like really into this. Okay, like big time. Okay, so they announced it's come out. There's a video that's out there. If you haven't seen the video on YouTube, it's like 9 minutes. It's on the Apple kind of YouTube page. It's really interesting. Okay, so I'm not sure if you guys have seen the video or not, but I'm sure you have thoughts around walking around with a headset on your face, right? So, Tim, like, first of all, like, are you a buyer? This thing's expensive. It's $3,500. I think that's expensive, right? Are you a buyer of an Apple Vision Pro?
And I'll tell you my perspective. I did watch the video. My perspective is the Apple user, I'd say, is going to likely be a quick buyer of it because it links so much and gives you mobility and allows you to design. That appealed to me when I saw the perspective. When I think about what Zoom and that kind of work did for businesses and professionals and really disrupted it just with COVID, it became a proof of concept almost overnight.
Yeah,
that has the same type of potential, in my opinion, of allowing people to see face to face. The FaceTime is enhanced to be able to manage your desktop,
Minority
almost
Report,
like Tom Cruise movie. I'm drawing a blank on it right now.
Yeah. Minority Report.
Where moving
sure.
things around. All of that seemed fake just 10 years ago. There's a realness to it. When Apple comes in and says, we're doing it, I think it just legitimizes so much more. Meta's Oculus just isn't there. I think people are skeptical of Facebook and Meta. I think Apple just gives you that solid confidence that this is going to work well. It has multi-functions. It's personal and work. I could see anyone connected to the Apple universe. I think this will be a home run.
You know, it's funny because Zuckerberg, so it's funny you said that about Meta, because Zuckerberg came out and said, like, it was really interesting. Like, two different, like, missions was the word he used. Like, for Apple, it seemed kind of very, like, you know, about you and your experience, right? Meta, they're saying it's more about us being social, right? And interacting with other people and, you know, and those types of things, which, I don't know if I exactly agree with them on that, right? But, you know, it's the Apple is very cool. Like, I've used an Oculus. Obviously, I haven't used a Vision Pro. Like, the Oculus is interesting, but it certainly doesn't have what I saw in that video, right? So if they can deliver that in a product.
The gaming and the movies, watching a movie where you can enhance your screen and the audio that comes with it, I find that appealing. Now, I'm curious to see the adoption of having to keep something in your pocket, the comfortability, which I'm sure they've thought through.
Yeah.
And just I'm in a room with another person that doesn't wear that, and I'm talking to them. I could see that that could take some time, I think, to get accustomed to.
Well, to be interesting, what's also interesting though is like Meta has the controllers, right? You know, with Apple, you're just using your hands, which is you know, I think better, but
brilliant.
But so Nick, you got employees in London, right? Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah. So when you think about this from like a work perspective, or maybe, you know, bringing your team closer together, I mean, have you thought about, is this like pique your interest in Apple Vision Pro? Like, hey, maybe I'll get this for the whole crew and, you know, we can work on the metaverse in kind of real time, or what do you think?
I love that idea. That's why I bought my Meta goggles. Was because I saw that the quality and the user experience kind of sucked.
Okay.
So I think Apple can do it better, but I love that concept of being able to meet this way. I mean, Zoom has transformed it. Clearly, the four of us are on Riverside right now. I use Google Meets constantly. It just makes the cost of doing business cheaper.
Yes.
But no, I think there's so many different practical uses to it, and I think Tim hits a pretty interesting one about makes me think about adoption. So if you've got, I just checked the stats, but we had 2 billion or more iPhones sold, and about a tenth of those, we had 200 million of the Apple Watches sold.
Right.
And if you do a tenth of that again, then you're going to do whatever 20 million of these.
Yes.
And at that rate, that's a $70 billion of revenue.
It's
right?
a big business.
So it's still because the number's so freaking chunky. So even at a 1% of what the iPhone did,
Yes.
right? If 1 in 100 of these pick up any version of this, I mean, it could be a pretty nice cash cow.
Yeah.
And
It's a bit, I mean, that's going to be, I mean, Apple hasn't launched a new like product, like proper, right, Nick? In like the Apple Watch was the last one, which was like 10 years,
was it
right?
the Watch or the iPad? I always forget which was more recent.
I mean, both of those were a long time. The iPads have been around a long time too, right? So this is like,
for sure.
This is like a
10
big
plus
opportunity for Apple. Not to mention, the thing I kind of geek out doing all the pre-IPO stuff is like what new companies will manifest themselves, right, through this new platform. Like when the iPhone came out, how many companies are in the S&P 500 now that are literally apps, right? That the iPhone came out in 2008, right? So like what new company in 10 years is going to be out that no one's ever even dreamed of before, right? Because this thing exists now.
Yeah, so I want to throw it over to Clint on Metaverse, and I want to throw it back to you, Aaron, because you're the biggest nerd on this stuff, how much you love it. Either one of you should just hop in. But I do think this does start to change the landscape and actually will reshape again how the S&P 500 is going to look.
I mean, I think it's
10 years from now,
unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know
who's
how much I'm going to rush out and
Clint,
buy
what do
it,
you
but
think, man?
I'm
What do you
eventually
think?
going to have to. Again, it comes down to data ownership too. Think about the data. Think about the eye, how that forms and shapes our reality. Literally, it's going to be gathering all of that data from all of the users everywhere. Yeah. And it's going to constantly improve and be iterative exponentially. And so the experience for the user is just going to get closer and closer to reality over time, and that's going to increase usage. It's big for the metaverse. I've been a metaverse nerd. I think it's a game changer. I think this is you knew Apple. I thought Apple was going to come with like a complete bodysuit to gather data and like really, really create like a real indistinguishable. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's kind of the way I thought Apple was going to play it, but they came
Ready
with
Player One.
Really probably the foundation of all of our perception of reality outside of the body first, which is these goggles. And so I'm super optimistic about it. I think it disrupts a lot of industries. I think you'll see it in every medical school, every college campus, eventually every high school. This will change the way we learn, change the way we communicate, change the way we perceive. I think it's going to, we're now bionic. I think this is going to be a serious leap in the evolution of mankind, and I'm very excited. So that might sound grand, but I think it's that big.
Okay, I don't think I'm the biggest geek anymore, Nick, around the metaverse.
No, but you actually nailed on the classroom piece. I remember having the Apple in the back of the classroom, and a few of us would always nerd out back there and be like, "Oh, we got Oregon Trail or whatever came like a few years before that." That's very, very interesting to think this can go in that direction and warp people to different places. So I don't know who's going to be making the money, if it's LVMH, because now you could be not doing QVC anymore. You're
Imagine getting your suit size like custom, right? Like everything,
Louis Vuitton,
like all your clothes custom,
right.
everything's sent to you custom.
Listen,
like it's just amazing.
Yeah. I'm thinking this is going to be pretty disruptive, Nick, to the S&P 500. Like you mentioned, I think this could be like a Kodak moment for some companies, literally. I actually believe that like the airline industry could get slapped around pretty big on this one, right? Where it could be material. Because I got to tell you, like a lot of us travel a lot, right? And some of the stuff that we do could probably be done with an Apple Vision Pro, right? So if I could be literally in the same room with somebody and my brain cannot tell the difference if they're actually there in person or, a digital representation of themselves, right?
This might be really bad for
you can't grab a beer you can't grab a beer with somebody who's digital, but maybe somebody can figure that out too. But Yeah.
Yeah, think about
Yeah.
a world where we got, 15, 20 years ago, you didn't leave your house with a phone in your pocket, and now that's so customary. Imagine instead of doing that, you're putting your goggles on for the day because it's what everybody else does. You talk about disruptions to businesses. Apple's getting into the money movement business with their credit cards. That's just sort of
Right.
out there, but that's going to grow through all these mechanisms. I can purchase things faster. Oh, my Apple credit card's on file because my eye caught it and said, yeah, pay that. Movies and gaming, Apple's into entertainment. Why wouldn't they put even more of their production into where my eye goes? So
Yeah.
you could see
Yeah.
this squeeze out. Clint, you've talked about this over time of, hey, some of the big 4 or 5 tech firms, one or two of them is not going to be here 20 years from now.
Right.
This is another step where Apple can dip into spaces that's not even their core business, and they'll just do it faster and better. And their content is good. That'll win. And you're making it easier for me to absorb it.
Yeah. I'm just blown away by this. I mean, I've already seen contacts. Like, I mean, I know that we're talking about goggles here, right? But the contacts coming next, where there's, it's just connected to a phone
That's
again
the
or
thing.
something.
Yeah, I think that might have a little slower adoption, just the physical structure of it.
It's just, I think to Clint's point, like, I truly feel like we're hitting this inflection point with technology, right? Whether it's like this kind of hardware, like the Apple Vision Pro, it's AI, it's humanoid robots, right? Like Tesla's humanoid robots, where there's like robots building other robots and making them more efficient. I mean, we're like, I think in the next 10 to 20 years, I truly believe like the S&P 500 is going to look totally different than it does today. And it will, and
It's going to be
I think a
interesting
healthy
to see how
portion of those
antitrust
companies
takes
won't
effect.
even be,
'Cause this is, I mean, we're
they
opening up
don't
a
even
whole
exist
new
today.
ball game, and
Right.
you could make a case for some of these mega platforms to get like Apple to get even bigger and stronger and dominant. Google, right? I think Google, because of the data ownership. I mean, it's going to be interesting to watch how it plays out for sure.
Right.
Yeah, and again going
Right.
back to the demographic, I can see a lot of the worry
It's a
about. I mean,
Glass-Steagall. It's like a Glass-Steagall
you talk about
moment,
extinction
right, Clint?
events that might be taking
You know,
it too
break
far,
'em
but
up.
how damaging AI is to humanity on one hand, and how advantageous it is on the other. Right? It's kind of this incredible paradigm. Because you can make the case, like if everybody's sitting around their house on goggles, right? In terms of birth rates, we're probably not going to look too great, and we're already an obese nation. And everybody's sitting around in their goggles all day, right? I doubt they're going to be using it to just exercise. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see. And we know that our brains, if you think about how long it took for our brains to evolve at this current point, and now you're going to just leap into sci-fi future reality, like we're not meant to kind of adjust that fast. And so it's gonna be heavily addictive. And so it's going to be interesting to watch. I'm super optimistic about it. I'm just trying to think about the other perspectives and side of the coin here, but I love it.
Oh, for sure.
I actually got an interesting one that you're encouraging the thought on. So right now we can do the fake AI, so I can become whatever celebrity we want, and we can actually manipulate my voice. What if we have a scam situation where Aaron and I are meeting for discussing business and things like this, potential investment? Someone has hacked my account, and now all of a sudden that money has been manipulated because they can like carry my voice across or something of that nature. That's terrifying. But on the lighter side, we'll end on this comment from me. When Tim mentions like the properties that Apple has, being the TV programming and things like that. Hey, maybe Tim, do you want to go meet and watch AFC Richmond and get beers fed to us from Ted Lasso?
Yeah.
How cool would that be? We could pay different prices to get different seats. That's initially done with Meta, but I think Apple would take it just to the next level with their content powerhouse. That's just remarkable. Of what's possible there.
That's well said.
So there's a nice pro and con, right? But
there's a lot there's just a lot of stuff coming down the pipe that I don't think any of us could even. I mean, these are all these things that we talked about are all have high probability of reality happening.
Equally as
Somebody's
hard.
been working on both of those two things: how to scam us and how to get you into a soccer game for the last two years.
It's funny you say that because
Exactly.
It's funny you say that because I just had someone a buddy of mine come to me and say that they're looking at joining a deep fake like fraud prevention company, and their demo, the CEO gets on and does a demo with the prospect, and they literally open up a bank account as them.
Wow.
On the phone, and the they don't know the difference. It's wild. I'm sorry, they log into their bank account with them on the phone, but the guy's doing it, deep faking them, and he's showing them how easy it is to get into a bank with this technology. So it's like it's already here, Nick. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think this
is great.
This is a major inflection point. But all right, hey, fellas, anything you want to hit
guys.
on right before we close up here for the day? All right,
Good.
cool. All right, gentlemen. Well, I appreciate it. It's good to see you this week. Thank you.
Thank
Great.
you. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me.